to everyone on this platform. I want to thank you in a special way for being part of this today. And it's a wonderful day. We are expecting something beautiful, and everybody will be all ears, and we're all going to learn from the wonderful presenters we have today. We have wonderful scholars. I will introduce them later. But before I introduce them, I want to say welcome to the platform of Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies of the National Open University of Nigeria. I am Professor Gloria Neto, the director of the center, and on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the National Open University of Nigeria, Professor Olufemi Peters, I welcome you all to yet another session in our monthly webinar. But this month of January, we'll be given special dispensation to have it twice. Courtesy Professor Akim Tijani, who used long legs to have wonderful presentations like this, and he wants to really give us something new and good. So the VC allowed it to happen twice this month, but thereafter, we shall continue with our monthly presentation. And I can see Professor Abdallah there. Good morning, sir, and Happy New Year to you. We welcome you all to this session, and I'm going to start by telling you a little bit more about our center, then go ahead immediately to introduce the presenters for today in this roundtable conference, the first in the year, and it promises to be a very exciting one. Our Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies was established in February 2020. So next month, make it 4 full years that this center was established, even though initially sponsored by TED Fund, but now fully owned by the National Open University of Nigeria, that is in charge and being sponsored fully by the National Open University of Nigeria. And so we say a big thank you and kudos to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, for taking on the viability of this center. Our vision is to be the bridge between humanity and the future. And of course, our mission is to provide sustainable leverage for interdisciplinary research in migration and global studies. And of course, we have our core values and our core mandates, which include to provide leverage for field-based and solution-driven research, to serve as agents of national policy for migration studies, to seek grants for academic activities and outreach for sustainability, to publish and sustain peer-reviewed academic journal and monograph series. Our journal, the volume 3, issue 3 was out late last year, and the printed copies are going to be out next week, so that those people who publish there can have the printed copies of the journal. But the electronic version has been online for the past 2 months. To collaborate, we organize the seminars and conferences. We are going to have a workshop on the 19th of February, a workshop on migration issues in Nigeria, and it's going to be physically presented. I mean, the workshop will be people coming physically in attendance, though we are going to have some online, attendance too, but it's mainly a physical thing. And that is February 19th at the National Open University of Nigeria, Jabi, Abuja, and you are all cordially invited. And it's going to be the first physical conference we are having in this center. And so we expect all of you to come on en masse to the university and be part of this wonderful show we're going to have that day. Having said that, let me quickly go now and introduce today's presenters and the topic. Our topic today is an interesting one, like I told you, is about migrating peace and studying peace. That's a very nice name, and I'm sure we are all going to see how we are going to migrate peace and study peace. And the convener of this, of course, is no one else other than Professor Akim Tijani, and he's also the chairman of today's program. And let me just start from him and go in that way. Professor Akim Tijani is currently the founding executive director, Office of Global Partnership Africa at Morgan State University. He was Commonwealth Scholar 1994 to 1997, Harry S. Truman Research Scholar 1996, Bernadette Schmidt Research Scholar 1996, the first distinguished Ashanti Professor of African Studies, University of Georgia, Athens, 2008, and of course the list continues. Appointed by Governor Moore as one of the commissioners on the State of Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture. This is a non-stipendiary service to the state of Maryland. It is an act of selfless service by individuals. He has been a full professor since 2009, the founding dean of the Faculty of Arts and Education, and the founding deputy vice chancellor at Adeleke University, Nigeria. He is a selfless mentor and generous visionary. A visiting professor at the National Open University of Nigeria, Abuja, he supervises three PhD students in peace and conflict resolution. He was also, of course, pioneer, director of this center, the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies. And he has published 75 articles in referee journals, 4 books, and 4 edited books. He is a visionary for the celebrated Ted Fund Morgan Agreement that has recorded and opened greater opportunities for doctoral degrees and postdoctoral fellowships in Nigeria in tertiary institutions. And on I can continue, but because there are others to be introduced and we are aware of time, we want to cut everything very short. So, Professor Tijani, you are welcome, sir. And we are really proud of you and can always count on you. The center is proud of you. Thank you, sir. The next person I will want to talk about is Professor Ganiat A. Additional Uthman. She is also a very wonderful scholar. She is a visiting professor and head of academic Center for Research, Innovation, Development, and Entrepreneurship in the UK since 2022. And of course, she's an economist par excellence of the Faculty of the Social Sciences of National Open University of Nigeria. And she's widely published, very, very widely published, and she has written so many books and widely traveled. I will not say more than this for Professor Ganiat because I know that we have had her here on many occasions. She's a wonderful scholar and to also assist us in this center. Whenever we call on her, she is always there to give us her best. Professor Ganiat, we welcome you to this discourse and we say we are also very proud of you. Thank you for coming, ma'am. And the next person here is Dr. Samuel Opeyemi Iroye. He's also an erudite scholar and of the Faculty of the Social Sciences, National Open University of Nigeria. He is an associate professor of strategic studies and conflict resolution. And he is also a lawyer because he's a dual degrees now. He has a degree and a master's degree in law from Ambrose Ali University, Ekpoma, Edo State. And he's a wonderful scholar. He has published widely, and very soon we know that his chair will be announced. He's somebody we're also very proud of his work. Bessie is proud to have him here today to join in this discourse. And the next person is Sir Ruth Abiola Adimula. This person is also a lawyer and also a social scientist. She has 2 degrees too in peace and development studies, as well as being a lawyer. So today's discourse will be very interesting. I hope we will not go to the court to finish up our talk, because when lawyers are seated, we are going to be very ready to judge them. Now they won't judge us. On a lighter note, she obtained her own degrees from Obafemi Awolowo University and the law degree from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. She holds a certificate of Harvard University, United States of America, in child protection. She has served as acting director in many portfolios, universities, and she has been external examiners to many institutions, and is a very, very vibrant scholar that we're happy to have amongst us here today. And she's going to also join in this discussion. She's very experienced in both peace and development studies as well as law. You see, I will not be able to read much about this biodata, an associate professor at the University of Ilorin in Kwara State of Nigeria.
So much. And I want to thank all the participants and the panelists in particular for this short notice. We would like to thank the Vice Chancellor, Professor Femi Peters, for agreeing to allow a second presentation in the month of January, because the issue at hand is so important that I think it's set the tone for those of us in academia, those of us teaching, research, and more importantly, for to bend the rule of once in a month, and we sincerely appreciate it. I appreciate the director for also accommodating, because she could have said, oh no, let's do it another month. It is important for us to discuss the issue at hand, migrating peace studies, and I want to capture the title very well. Migrating Peace Studies and Studying Peace. You'll be wondering, what is the rationale for this particular roundtable? Because of time, I decided to note, without just talking, the following: the colonized Eurocentric view about peace studies, particularly in Africa. When you read about the origin of peace studies, you usually have an Eastern European, Yuatan, as the founder of peace studies. I beg to disagree, and I believe my co-panelists beg to disagree, because the issue of peace, everyday life peace, is African. It predates European encounter, and we can go back even within our own family and cultural tradition across Africa, that indeed peace, studying peace, not in the Western way, has always been a major everyday life. So that is one rationale. Number two is the fact that we want to decolonize peace studies as a discipline in Nigeria. That is, peace studies is multidisciplinary, it is multidimensional, and that is why you have in peace studies department, whether you call it history and peace studies, or you call it sociology and peace studies, or philosophy and peace studies, religion and peace studies, it is multidimensional. And you see researchers, those interested from even the health sciences and even the engineers, do historicize, contextualize, and critique the whole idea of the methodology of peace studies. And our purpose today is to present that varieties of studying peace studies. Lastly, to present it as a continued discipline, a discipline that is relevant to our everyday policy and developmental goals. And I think the origin for me, before I allow Professor Ganiat to come first, came in sometimes in January, September 9, 2014. I was then a DVC at Adeleke University, and I received an e-copy of the United Nations news talking about peace studies, the interest of the United Nations, and the definition of peace as it is applicable to real-life events. And I began to interrogate it. And of course, that is the origin of a serious pedagogical approach, serious research
at that particular institution. Today, peace studies has gained so much ground, and it's also relevant. To contextualize it within the framework of migration studies, we're of the opinion that in its trajectory, peace studies as a discipline has also migrated severally and continue to migrate in terms of the multi-dimensional nature of its content. So today we have Professor Ganiat, we have Professor Adimula, we have Professor Iroye, Dr. Adams, and their perspective and their experiences in studying, migrating, making relevant peace studies within their discipline. And that is the primary purpose of this panelist. And I will come up again to speak because I don't want to dominate. I have so much here, but I will come back to speak to that. We allow Professor Adesina Uthman to go ahead. So now you have between 5 to 8 minutes. And I believe you are a co-host. So if you want to share your PowerPoint, you told me you have a PowerPoint. If not, go to plan B. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, thank you, my dear Prof and Director. Very good afternoon, my former Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Badamu. Good to see you, sir. Professor Emeritus, Professor Sogolo, and all management staff that may be here, every other colleague, I greet you. Good afternoon. The host has disabled participants screen sharing. I don't know if they can actually allow me to share. If not, I have a PowerPoint that I would like to share to say my story about peace, migrating peace. Thank you so much. I hope that time given to me will be sufficient to go through this.
10 minutes, ma.
10 minutes. Okay. All right. The topic has been introduced, migrating peace and peace studies, a roundtable, and I've been introduced. I'm a well-known face to everyone here. Okay, let's start. I actually started with a quotation from the Quran and the Bible about peace, which says, in the Quran, the believers are told that in paradise, therein they will hear no abusive speech, nor any talk of sin, only the saying, peace, peace. That's in Quran 56, verse 25 to 26. Romans 12, verse 18 also said, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. That shows the foundation of peace in the religion that all of us are practicing, whether you're a Muslim or a Christian. Even if we go furthermore, we are going to see from the Mosaic law as well, where God actually tells us the importance of peace, and it starts with us. Way back at International Islamic University, as a migrant and education tourist, my husband and I were selected to attend an international conference on Palestinian and Israeli conflict at the Putrajaya International Conference Center. It was a very large conference center. We got there, and of course, that qualified my little baby who was 5 months old, and my last baby, my last born, and the only girl. So we were able to attend the conference, and when we got into the hall, we settled down. Then later on, we started hearing rowdiness and noisy fighting. What could happen at a peace conference? This is a peace conference for crying out loud. So we went out there. We went to the door, to the entrances. What happened? We saw that the Palestinian, Muslim, Christian, and Jews, and the Palestinian and Israeli, Muslim, Christian, and Jew were actually fighting one another. The Palestinians are saying the Israeli will not enter into the conference. This is a peace conference. And any conference, anybody's allowed to come into the conference. So it was so rowdy, so physical fighting, that men has to come in between them and said, okay, let's resolve this amicably. How can you migrate war from Israel and Palestine down to Malaysia, where you're supposed to come and talk about peace? But eventually, when we settled back into the hall, they were allowed, because the Palestinians, whether Christian or Jew or Muslims, they were annoyed that they went through a lot of scrutiny to get visa to attend that conference. And ditto went for the Israeli participants as well. The Israel government did not want them to attend the conference. They also suffered to attend the conference. So why will you deny them? So when we settled down, eventually they are allowed to come in. When they came in and we settled down, my little baby started the baby blah, blah, blah. You know, the blah, blah. There was a perfect silence in the hall. Somebody was talking. Then when my daughter started blabbling, then everybody just looked at us and they were just shouting, hallelujah, Allah Akbar. How can we have this in Israel and in Palestine? That this baby is an indication that this conference will bring peace. But unfortunately, what do we see today? We have not seen freedom, we have not seen peace. Then I realized that peace is not the absence of conflict, but it is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means, according to Ronald Reagan. And I think I agree perfectly with him. If you are able to handle conflict peacefully, you know, we would overcome the war, we will overcome the violence that always occur among human beings. So after that, as a young woman, actually, I learned a lot about migration and migrating peace, especially in Malaysian peace culture, which I would like to share some of them with you. There are 3 major tribes in that country, and I wonder why they always avoid civil unrest or societal mayhem. You won't see them go to the street. You don't see them go to the public space to riot. They don't do that. They will not. Once when they did that was to go to the like of our Eagle Square, just sit down there with their former prime minister, and they were just singing and eating and then protesting. That's the protest, that we don't want the current prime minister on the throne again. That is the way they protested. That is what I've ever witnessed in that space. It also baffled me why they don't always use on. And one day,
I think
I told my husband, I said, these people are momo. They will be walking. You are walking. You don't know a bakery is coming behind you. If you don't look back and leave the road, they have pressed the on, blast it very well, you know. But they will not do that. I was wondering. My husband said, they are the wise one, but you, the migrants, are the one that lack culture of peace. Because here, if you blast on anybody, it's an insult, and that person must deserve it before you actually do that. And then I look at their logo. When you look at their country, this thing, what do you call it? Arm of coat. It is unity. Coat of arm. It is unity in strength. So, then recently, let me also share with you what the Agog, that is the head of the president. The king is like the president in Malaysia. Recently, he advised his countrymen. He said, let us not take for granted freedom and peace that Malaysia is enjoying. He warned the youth. He said, please frown at disagreement, frown at conflict, because it can crush a country's hope and future. And this is what is happening when you look at many countries that have been crushed by war, by violence, by kidnapping, by many other things that are violence in nature that can destroy peace or peaceful coexistence, because it kills community and it kills the whole process of development. So Shah also underlined that the biggest danger to future of younger generation, of course, is to take up arm or to go into war or disagreement. And in their history, they have never been so aggressive in their life. They are so peaceful living together. You see the Malay, you see the Indians, and you see the Chinese. And they have a way by which they have structured their the running of the country such that there won't be clashes because of power. and nobody is trying to take power from anyone. And something again that they always remind themselves of is this: let us all be reminded that all Malaysians will live together as members of one big family. If every other country, if Nigeria can emulate this, that we are one big family, then we would be able to know what peace means, migrate peace from one place to another, and also know that we can, and we can do it. Malaysia will also always say Malaysia Kita. Malaysia Kita means I'm Malaysian, and because of that, I stand with whatever is Malaysian. The same thing goes for their product and every other thing. Migrating peace. Then let me start with how leaders have migrated war instead of peace. You see the number of displaced people at the end of 2015 was 65.3 million people, and 5 million naira above what we have in 2014. And that's according to UNHCR's report, the Global Trend 2015. This number includes 40.8 million internally displaced people from their own native countries. What is happening? People are migrating, fine, but because of lack of peace, because of civil unrest, because of war, you see people, even in their own country, they are internally displaced. And 3.2 among these 65.3 million people are seeking asylum, while 21.3 are refugees. Peace around the world. Do we have that? Do you have peace around the world? According to that report also on Global Trend 2015, out of 7.4 billion people that are on the surface of the earth, 1 in every 113 are either internally displaced, or they are refugee, or they are asylum seekers. And this is unprecedented risk, all because we are in search of peace. The number of persons compared to flee has increased 4 times in the last 10 years. Before, you will see about 6 people flying within 1 second. But now you see average of 24 people flying, trying to flee where they are within 1 minute, within the same 1 minute. So Somalia accounted for half of the world refugees, which is a very sad one. And up to today, those countries are still battling with it. Once war happened, to have non-violent resolution and to migrate peace back into that country may not be that very easy. We quickly touch on the multidisciplinary nature of peace. The West has never experienced true peace since World War II, actually. Since then, it's been from one country, 2 countries against another, and internal civil unrest and a lot of issues. Yemen, Colombia, Iraq, Russia, Ukraine, Palestine, and Israel is, Mali among it, Niger of recent, all of them actually, to mention but a few countries, have not known true peace. And Nigeria needs to be careful because we are also at the precipice because of what is happening in the country currently. So on peace studies, based on what I've said, consequently, lives and good living on earth are affected. Economies and economics are affected. Education is affected. Freedom is affected. Peace is affected. Health is affected. Human development is affected. A lot of things are affected when there's no peace, when there is civil unrest, when there is war, when there is kidnapping, when there is banditry attack. That is why studying peace is very, very important. Studying peace by all experts. Peace cut across almost all strata of the society and almost all discipline that we can talk about in the academics, because peace is multidisciplinary. I've always believed before that without good economy, a country cannot progress. But I realize, being a peace ambassador, that without peace, even when you can't have good economy that we're talking about. So without peace, you can't have that quality education we're talking about. Let me now touch on how NOUN has been able to, contribute to studying peace. NOUN started peace studies in 2004 in the Department of Political Science, where we have a unit. So
Please,
we have this vision to provide productive and cost-effective flexible learning that add long life value to quality education towards producing knowledge-based and development-inclined peace and conflict scholars, peace and conflict scholars that will know about theories and themes about peace and conflict resolution. And this is in accordance with national policy on education in Nigeria. So in 2017, when I became the dean of the faculty, yes, 2016, I became the dean of the faculty. But before I became the dean, PCR, like I said, BSc PCR has been existing. But in 2017, I met PCR, BSc PCR, PGD PCR, and MSc PCR. So when I was serving my first term as a dean, I noticed that we have the highest student enrollment that are studying peace in our university. And this include the prisoners, especially with the scholarship that was given by the then Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu, to the prisoners to study for peace, which is still running up to today. And I have quite a number of prisoners as my friends up to today. In my second term as the dean of the faculty, I worked together with the current HOD, and we are able to, develop the PCR, OPP, and DPP, which was of quality. It was approved by the faculty curriculum committee. It went to Senate, and again today we are celebrating our students studying peace study resolution at a PhD level. And this is something that always gladdens my heart anytime I know that I actually contributed a lot to that. And decolonizing peace, let me quickly touch on that. And that's the last slide anyway. Yes, being a Peace Pro ambassador, this position was given to me by our student, our alumni from the Department of Peace Studies. They added me as a member to the Peace Pro ambassador, noticing some of the issues I was able to resolve during the period I was serving, and develop more interest in peace studies. And since then, in 2021, I put together a team, and my mentor here, the director and my prof, who is the Roundtable convener, was actually part of us. And when I come up with Peace Club, he said, why can't you decolonize the Peace Club? Not just the ordinary Peace Club, let's decolonize Peace Club. And here we are today. A sub-team out of this team were able to win the Senate Research Grant in 2022, and they've gone to the field. They have very robust reports, and I just want to share one piece from it with you, and that will be my conclusion. And one of it is this. It's actually a kind of music or song, let me say. We see a new Nigeria. We see a new Nigeria. We shall all live in peace and oneness. Yes, we see a new Nigeria. We see a new Nigeria. And all we need to do is to live in peace, in love and harmony. We should look beyond our differences. We should look beyond our various identities. Though we differ in tribes, but together we are one. Together in peace, Nigeria will be great again. Let me tell you that in conclusion, we are going to ensure that what the sub-team came back from the field, from the pilot studies was circulated, and we pray to win big for this. And by God's grace, we shall come here again, maybe to share our story of decolonizing peace and migrating peace. Eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind. Why do we have to do eye for an eye? And peace begin with a smile. Let us always put on a smile. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Professor Uthman. I'm smiling already. And I want to say that the Norwegian sociologist, Johan Guatong, who is acclaimed by the Westerners as the founder or the father of peace studies, will definitely be learning a lot, if he's still alive, from the sons and daughters of Professor Albert, who is also crowned as the founder and father of peace studies in Nigeria. It was the United Nations, also going back to 2014, that defined peace as follows, quote, dignity, well-being for all, not just the absence of war. While we are not into conflict between UI, that is Ibadan, and Ilorin as to where the peace studies originated in Nigeria, and we will not go to the court, I will call on Professor Ademola to contextualize peace studies, migrating peace, within the context of University of Ilorin, but more importantly, our own narrative, because storyline is so important. It's so important in our ethnographic research method. It's so important even in our other aspect of methodological research. So Professor Ademola, you have the virtual space for, let's give you 8 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, the chairman, the VC, the former VC of National Open University, Professor Sogolo, and everybody. Can I share my screen? I sent my presentation to Dr. Abiola Ademola. I'm an associate professor at the University of Ilorin Center for Peace and Strategic Studies, primarily a lawyer, was called to the Nigerian bar in 1993. And my topic this afternoon, as for this roundtable, is also migrating peace and studying peace. And from my outline, I'm going to discuss with you the introduction, meaning of peace, meaning of migrating and migrating peace studies in University of Ilorin, how it started. I'm going to also share with you personal experience and for other related courses and other lecturers. I'm going to conclude and give recommendations and way forward. I know, but starting, what do we really mean by peace studies? So I try to analyze that peace studies is an interdisciplinary field of inquiry. It is animated by desire to build sustainable peace at all levels of society through policy relevant research and practice at a very broad range of pressing topics. And we are talking about topics like concepts and processes that demand justice, that promote healing, that create more equitable societies. Many times, the root causes of violence in all its forms, including physical, structural, cultural, and environmental. And so we have strategies to prevent or end conflict in its entirety, and we have different approaches to do this. All these are encapsulated in the study of peace. And the field of peace studies recognizes that conflict is inherent in human behavior. And so we seek to harness conflict through non-violent means to reduce violence and transform. Every day, we have problems, we have conflict within ourselves, within the society, within the groups, and everywhere. And the issue of peace studies has been extended to include all forms of professions, meaning that it is applicable to all professions, like peace research, drawing on resources from multiple disciplines, including anthropology. You talk of business, history, political science, philosophy, psychology, sociology, theology, law, any profession that you can talk about, there is an issue of peace there. So I try to also analyze some peace studies in different professions to show that it's applicable to everything. So I'm saying here that peace studies is an interdisciplinary course. It cuts across all disciplines. For example, in medicine, we have conflict between medical personnel and relatives of patients. Also, there is negligence of medical practitioners against patients, which many times leads to conflict and even litigation. In veterinary medicine, we talked about farmers and others' conflicts in the course of seeking for grazing resources. Many times, harm are done to the animals, destruction of farmers' grains, and all this leads to conflict. And we have experienced this at different levels in the country. Come to law, we have human rights violation, alternative dispute resolutions. All these are talking about peace studies. In engineering profession, many times we have conflict issues between engineers and clients. The brief that the client has given to the engineer when he gets to site is not what is in the paper. And the mismanagement of the construction on site also leads to conflicts. In education, generally, conflicts are found among teachers between head of school and staff, abuse of pupils or students, among several other conflicts that we can have in the education sector. So, having said that, I want to move to how peace studies started the University of Ilorin. It was in 2008 when Professor Ishaq Oloyede, the present registrar of JAM, was our vice chancellor. And Dr. Halbert Olawale, now Professor Halbert, was invited from University of Ibadan as our maiden director. Lecturers, at that time, I registered as a student, as a PhD student in Center for Peace, though I was a lecturer at the Faculty of Law. And at that time, I've started my PhD in law in Obafemi Awolowo University. But when they started the peace studies in Unilorin, I abandoned my PhD law and registered for peace studies. And lecturers at that time were brought from University of Ibadan, along with Professor Halbert, to take some courses. Also, lecturers were vested from other departments in the University of Ilorin, including from the faculties of agriculture, arts, law, education, medicine, communication, different departments. We have lecturers. And each of them were teaching courses as relating to peace from their own perspective and discipline. And personally, I think it's also good to mention my personal experience as it relates to the topic that we are discussing. Personally, I hold a law degree of Ahmadu Bello University in 1992. I was called to the Nigerian bar in Lagos in 1993. My NYC was 93-94. And my master's in law was at Obafemi Awolowo in 2004. In 1995, I established a law firm, Biola Ademola & Co., still running to date. And I do a lot of humanitarian services in my law practice, especially in the area of protection and defense of the rights of women, children, and the less privileged. So I enjoy doing it. And so when I now have the passion to go into peace studies, I had to further the passion that I have with my law background of like a voice to the voiceless, defending the rights of the less privileged or those that were not heard. So I registered as a PhD student in 2008. I was part of the first set when peace studies was brought to the University of Ilorin. And my research was on gender-based violence in refugees and internally displaced persons camps in West Africa. This is my passion. I enjoyed it. I was traveling to different camps in Nigeria, Ghana, and Sierra Leone. And I had a copper that was posted to my law firm the young lady was so intelligent. So I was going around the West African countries with her to take data for my PhD thesis. And I enjoyed interviewing these displaced persons, and also I lodge in the refugees or IDP camps wherever I go with this young lady. And invariably, I discovered that I was enjoying it because it's part of what I do in law practice. So coming to peace studies and also working for the less privileged, I found it very, very interesting. So in 2013, I defended my thesis, and I graduated in 2014. So after that, I now discovered that I was a lecturer in Faculty of Laws. Then I started making a move to be transferred to the Center for Peace, because the director of the Center for Peace then, Professor Adedimeji, was telling me that they needed me. So in January 2016, I moved to Center for Peace, and the law courses that were taken by some of my colleagues from Faculty of Law were given to me, meaning that we do not need some of the law lecturers from Faculty of Law as adjunct lecturers, since I was basically there. And so that is how I migrated my service from law to peace studies. And as a lawyer in Center for Peace, what I lecture is international humanitarian law, alternative dispute resolution, women, and peace building. This gave me an opportunity to use my professional qualifications in arbitration obtained in London in 2010 and mediation certificates that I obtained from Nigeria. Even as a lawyer, everything is relevant for me now in peace studies. And Professor Hakeem Ijaya, a lawyer from Faculty of Law, University of Ilorin, teaches environmental law and climate change in Center for Peace. Professor Olaseyinde Williams, who is from Education, taught emotional intelligence. Professor Adegoke, in guidance and counseling, teaches gender issues in peace studies. Professor Balogun is teaching food security. He's from Faculty of Agric. He's teaching food security in our Center for Peace. Professor Olademo from Department of Religion is teaching the student religious harmony and peace. Dr. Raji from Political Sciences teaches peace and globalization. And in 2018, there's a professor, Professor Ayedun from Veterinary Medicine, just brought an article to Center for Peace to publish in our Peace Journal. Then I queried him. I said, veterinary, what is your own in Peace journal again? And he explained to me that all the issues that we are doing on others farmers conflicts are part of what they do, meaning that from veterinary, there's also huge relevance to peace. And Professor Assis from Department of Communications teaches effective communication in peace studies in our center. As I talk to you, a postgraduate student in our center is working on his thesis, and the topic is, he works with the Teaching Hospital, University of Ilorin, and his thesis is conflict between patients' relatives and hospital workers. Also, a colleague of mine who graduated from Faculty of Law, University of Ilorin, Dr. Helen Ofoebu, wrote a thesis on medical officers' negligence against patients. This was taught under law, but it can be rightly situated also under peace studies. So in essence, what we are saying is that peace is relevant to all professional bodies. And so it is important for us to recognize this and get involved. So I'm concluding by saying that conflict is endemic to human lives, and there are conflicts everywhere in our day-to-day activities. We cannot do without it. It is endemic. It is part of life. So peace studies is all-encompassing in all human endeavors and profession. So since peace studies is a growing profession, migrating from other professions to peace studies will be an ongoing phenomenon necessitated by life demands. There is no doubt about this. And so, to make impact in global peace, scholarship and research have key roles to play, and that is why it is important that all universities and citadels of learning should establish peace studies or include peace education in their curriculum from basic to tertiary education. And my recommendations are these. Number one, more sensitization and advocacy on the importance of peace and peace studies is required at all levels of government and academic performances. Number two, peace education should be introduced in the study curriculum of pupils and students from primary to tertiary education. This has an advantage of teaching these children inner peace. If they have peace within themselves, they can also showcase it and transfer it to the community. Number three is the fact that tertiary institutions should establish peace centers to train students, whether at undergraduate level or postgraduate level, or even at both levels. Number four, I'm saying that the federal government should establish peace commission to serve as a coordinating office for academics, government, and the public. Number five, I know we don't have time, that's why I'm rushing. Number five, I've recommended that the federal government and TED Fund should fund more peace education, research, and projects in tertiary institutions to improve peaceful coexistence in our communities and for national integration. And the last recommendation I am making here is that scholars with passion to impact peace aspects of their professions are encouraged to migrate to peace studies. Peace studies as a profession is a growing area. It is green and it is developing fast. And we need more people to join us to work in the peace area of their profession as it relates to them. I know that the veterinary doctor, Professor Ayedun, that I talked about, that published in the Peace Journal, is on this platform. He has joined. Maybe if time permits, during question and answer, he can be called upon to say one or two things. Having said that, I want to thank the organizers of this program very sincerely for this great opportunity. It is very huge for me. It's a privilege to be able to make my own points and share my views with erudite scholars and practitioners of peace on this platform. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ademola. I think I have not, and the good Lord that we serve did not direct me to you in vain. I never knew what you were going to speak about. We only gave some synopsis of, take a look at it, but I've been educated. I've become learned, as you lawyers will say. The next speaker is Dr. Iroye, and by his grace, he will be pronounced as a full chair, as Professor Aneto rightly mentioned, very soon. But what is important about this current HOD of Peace Studies and Conflict Resolution at National Open University of Nigeria is the fact that he would tell his own story. We borrowing a very good, model from Professor Emeritus Sogolo as one of the first people that presented on this platform about 4 years ago now, and his paper was published. The narratives are always highly educative, informative, and helps for us to understand the multidimensional nature of our society and our discipline. Dr. Iroye will tell you about his own trajectory, which, of course, I know that Professor Ganiat deliberately left out so that we can hear from him as we heard from Professor Ademola. So, Professor Iroye, you have 8 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I quite appreciate the opportunity to speak. May I appreciate my Vice Chancellor, Professor Olufemi Peters, the Director of the Center, Professor Aneto, my former Dean and still active, Professor Ganiat Additional Utsman, and all other distinguished personality. My mentor, Professor Tijani, I am not, I want to say I appreciate the privilege. More importantly, when I saw my former Vice Chancellor, who is our grandfather on this platform, my spirit is lifted up. I especially appreciate our father, Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu, who actually made some of us who we are. So this is an opportunity for us to give back. And you see that all your effort within the university system has not been a waste. We are still carrying the torch and will not disappoint you. Maybe this will be another opportunity for me to quickly say something. I always like new things before I go on. Since I'm having our daddy here, Professor Sogolo is our grandfather, and I'm having my former Vice Chancellor here, I will gladly say this. I am advocating, I'm Oliver Twist, begging for Institute of Peace and Security Study, University of Ilorin. I want people to use your energy, your influence, that we should be able to have Institute of Peace in National Open University. That is the way everybody is going. And it makes us to actually exhibit the multidisciplinary energy which the peace studies encompasses. And if we don't have that, we continue as a department, which is basically an NUC regulated operation. So, sir, we want more. We need Institute of Peace at the National Open University. And I know you can give us that. Thank you, sir. I have been mandated to look at migrating peace and studying peace, and I will round up looking at some of our courses and how relevant they are. And I promise I won't use more than 10 minutes. Migrating peace, simply put, means projecting the principles of peace building to issues of migration in all ramifications, whether locally or internationally. Projecting the principle of peace building. Then studying peace involves having the desire. Okay, I said studying peace involves having the desire to acquire necessary or prerequisite knowledge in peace building.
That major society, but telling also your own story of relevance of your discipline, your area of specialty, as we have highlighted in the last 1 hour. Thank you, sir. We hope Professor Iroye will join us.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this great opportunity to come and share my views on this important topic, migrating peace and studying peace. Before I proceed, because I'm speaking from the perspective of SPSP, I think I should recognize all our great fellows in the house. I can see Professor Godwin Sogolo, the fellow of the society and the board member. Thank you so much, sir. And of course, Professor Tijani is also, our fellow, renowned fellow. And let me not forget our immediate past Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Adamu, who have been so generous to the society while he was there as our Vice Chancellor. I want to thank all of you.
Sorry, it's Professor Iro. Go ahead, Professor.
I'm
5
so
minutes
sorry.
for Professor Iroye. 5 minutes,
Okay.
sir.
I'm so sorry for that interruption. I said, OCR forces, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Where we have the necessary and the prerequisite knowledge, our society function. Peace study is necessary to attend to the issue of migration and is attending challenges all over the world. Peace study is very important in our everyday life as citizens of whatever state or country we belong to. Because where there is no peace, the activities of the government to give us good governance is destabilized, and unity and peaceful coexistence is compromised. And where all these things happens, it becomes difficult for people to live a fruitful life. That is what occasioned this Jackpot syndrome that we are all experiencing all over the world. Jackpot syndrome is actually a migration issue. People moving from one place to the other. Why? Greener pasture. Greener pasture is not only in terms of money, it's also a peace of mind. Everybody wants peace. Everybody wants to enjoy peace. And that's why you see that people are moving from one end to the other. Essential note about the word peace. I need to say this. Nature itself is chaotic. So it is the responsibility of men and women to create peace. And thus is the reason why God created man and woman. I remember Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. That was chaos. It is that chaos that God wanted to provide solution to. Then he created man. So it is out of place for somebody to believe that there will be peace in the world. There will not be. It is our responsibility to create peace. Nature itself is chaotic, whether it's a family, whether it's a society, wherever you find yourself. So it is our responsibility to maintain peace. That's what God has given to us. And that will lead me to a very important statement to give you a better definition of peace, which simply means no destruction. So what am I saying in the essence? Peace study simply means no destruction. If I am fighting with you, I should protect your integrity. I should protect your honor or respect it. I should not destroy you. So fighting should not bring destruction. That's all about peace studies. Okay? Multidisciplinary nature of peace. Yes, I think Dr. Ademola, who is a big sister of mine, has talked a lot about that. Multidisciplinary nature of peace. Peace has the ability, the peace studies has ability to engage people from all disciplines. And that is why I started my presentation by asking for Institute of Peace, because this one will give us opportunity to actually encompass, enjoy that multidisciplinary nature which peace studies brought about. In as much as for us in National Open University, we also have our recruitment and whatsoever to the Department of Peace is multidisciplinary in nature, but somehow limited. We have been limited to history, political science, peace study. Why? Because we run a departmental-based program, which is faculty-based. Okay? And maybe that's why my prof said I will talk about my own, evolution to the Department of Peace, all thanks to Professor Ganiat. Because if she has thrown me out, I would not have been where I am today. I was in the Faculty of Law, just like Professor Ademola, and then when it was time for me to become a senior lecturer, you cannot be a senior lecturer because you have a PhD in strategic studies and peace and whatsoever. And Professor Ganiat opened her arms wide, said, look, I need you here. And I came in, and I won't lie to you, coming to peace study has broadened my horizon, made my life better, and even made my impact deeper. I could reach a lot of people. When I was a lawyer, people are skeptical of relating with me. But when I started studying peace and practicing peace, people accept me better because they know I will not be judgmental. I would rather be open-minded to their situation. Let me once again thank Professor Ganiat and Professor Abdallah that make this my vision realizable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When I joined it was a unit I joined. Peace study was a unit under peace studies. I mean, under political science. And I conversed with my dean. I said, look, I wouldn't want to work as a unit. I want a department. And my dean said, okay, let's go to the vice chancellor. And I see the vice chancellor then was already thinking about it. We didn't waste time. Professor Abdallah gave us a verdict. Bring your resolution, bring your OPP, bring your DPP, and we became a department. Professor Abdallah, I say thank you, sir. More grace to your elbow. So what we are today, I'm any effort and ability, and we're grateful to it. Let me round up by saying we have a lot of our courses that are relevant to the society at large. I may not be able to go into the full details of their relevance. And that is actually what portrays the multidisciplinary nature of peace study in National Open University. We have courses that borders on democracy. We have courses that borders on good governance. We have courses that borders on culture and value system. We have courses that borders on education and peace. We have courses that border on perception, which is an aspect of sociology. We have courses that borders on language and information, which is an aspect of language. We have courses that borders on media. We have courses that borders on sustainable environment, which is an aspect of sciences. We have so many courses that I may not be able to dish out here. We have a lot of courses. So coming to study peace study in National Open University is an opportunity we gladly give to anybody. Just like I said, you can either study it informally or formally. And I'm happy that we have Dr. Adam who will be talking about SPSP. If you want to study peace studies informally, SPSP has a lot of programs, workshops for people who are not career-minded, who want to know about peace. And I know Dr. Adam will talk about that. But you can also embrace us to have a career in peace study. Notwithstanding, we will not compromise the NUC standard for you, even though we will take you from any discipline, but you will still fulfill the NUC standard. I'm inviting all of you, join us at this side of the table, and let's make our world better. With you and me, we can have a better world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Iroye. You can see the trajectory or the migrating of peace studies as a discipline within the context of BMAS to CMAS. Okay, that is another aspect that we have not fully talked about, the changing nature of the coverage of the content, which is so important. Peacemaking and mediation are not just theories and concepts, they are also practice that has made our world and at this point, I'm calling on Dr. Adeola Adams to share his own perspective with us. Thank you very much. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to wrap up with this 7 minutes. I have already, established the protocol for my presentation this afternoon. Let me now start by making us realize the fact that the Society for Peace Studies and Practice was an offshoot of the Peace and Conflict Studies program of the University of Ibadan, which actually started in 2001. And it was introduced by Professor Isaac Olawale Albert. I think everybody is already aware of this. And the Society of Peace Studies and Practice is supposed to serve as a bridge between the academic program and the professional learning. So we can say that, well, there are different levels of, migrations that SPSP is trying to actually articulate. Number one, how do we, decolonize the peace practice, the Eurocentric model that we seem to be practicing that is not, giving us effective outcome? How do we domesticate our own practice? How do we Africanize the interventions, as the case may be, across the country and in the whole of Africa? Now, the second leg would be, I agree that all of us are more or less like migrants in peace studies. Everybody has his own, basic professional calling. I was a political scientist before I became a practitioner of peace. And I think to a very large extent, have made a lot of discoveries that peace studies seems to be the foundation of all disciplines. And everybody, every profession seems to have a stake in peace studies. And I think this is what Society for Peace Studies is trying to, bring to us as academics and as practitioners. During my days, we were the second set of the master program in peace studies in the West of Ibadan. And I remember then, you did not have to, you didn't really have the prerequisite, for admission is that you just have a first degree. And of course, you must have a cognate experience in any discipline. You can be a pastor, you can be an accountant, you can be a banker. In my class, for instance, we have engineers, we have journalists, we have security operatives, we have medical personnel, lawyers, activists, politicians. And I think that made that particular class very, very rich. And I remember when Professor Albert took us PCS 701, which is Introduction to Peace Studies. I think the conversation was usually very intense because different, experts and professionals, they usually bring all, their background to bear, to contribute to, the discourse, to the extent that we began to see the different dimension of peace studies. And it was in that wisdom that Professor Albert, selected 20 individuals from the class and said, I think we should start something. And that was how the Society for Peace Studies and Practice started. So I can confidently say that I was part of the whole process from the beginning. And interestingly, I happened to be the past governor. And how I was able to manage all the big guys, we had commissioner of police, we have speakers, we have brigadier generals, we have those who are in foreign missions in that particular class. And of course, some of us were actually admitted to that class simply because we rode on the, on the crest of the founder because of our personal leadership with Professor Albert. Otherwise, I was so sure that I wouldn't have gotten a slot to study, peace studies. The trajectory of peace studies now has demonstrated that there should be no restriction. In University of Ibadan, we don't have undergraduate. And in fact, the way the program was structured was in such a way that they were looking for core professionals who can readily put, the skills of peace studies to use. And that is why they were looking for clergymen, they were looking for, bankers, they were looking for medical doctors. Having taken the course, they were able to situate the course within their, professional calling, their primary calling. And like we all agree that it's conflict everywhere in every profession. How you are able to adapt, your primary calling into the peace, profession seems to be the major thrust of what we were trying to, achieve. And today we have several, professionals who are doing very well. We have people like Ozonia Ojieno, who is a UN resident coordinator in Rwanda. He had been building peace in several, countries across Africa and beyond. And of course, there was Dr. Isaac Babalola, who was in my class. Dr. Isaac Babalola, was at the time the Commissioner of Justice in Oyo State. But he also served as an attaché to the peacekeeping support operations to several places in Africa and across the world. And we have Segun Ogunyonwo, who was an engineer. And Segun will tell you that I have left, mechanical engineering. I'm now into human and social engineering. And I think he has been doing a lot, helping to build relationships, helping to, douse tension across, every spectrum of our national life. And I think the lessons this is telling us, like I said earlier on, is that peace studies is not a respecter of where you're coming from. Your ability to be able to adapt and take off and locate yourself within your discipline. And I think this is exactly what the Society for Peace Studies is trying to achieve. Today, under our current president, Ambassador Nathaniel Awahupila, he has created what we call community of peace practitioners. And what you want to see there is where we have the academia, we have, different shades of professionals coming together, to share experiences and to see how can we, structure our intervention in such a way that when there is a problem in a particular place, who will be most suited to go and, make that intervention, that effective intervention to happen, rather than, engaging in processes that are largely uncoordinated. We strongly feel that that is the way to go. And we are calling on all our elders in the house and those who are yet to join. SPSP is beckoning on all of us to come and situate, our professional calling within the peace community. And we'll be happy to have all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're going to migrate Professor Neto to join, and we will take maybe 3 comments, and we will. But before we do that, in 2018, we had I was still at National Open University of Nigeria then, and I was part of a grant that is so international from the Arts and Humanities Research Council of UK. The first grant was in the sum of £90,000. Do not send any fund me to me because I never received any kobo in my account. It was grant for research. And in the following year, the council was generous to give us £2.8 million. And what is the purpose? To focus on decolonizing peace education. And I think Professor Ganiat later, joined that team. I think there was an international conference that was later put together in 2020 or thereabout. But what is important is that informal education about peace, about displacement, and we conducted a lot of ethnographic methodological research. Again, I remember in various conversations, I have to tell the people that I cannot report to my vice chancellor then, Professor Abdallah Adamu, without emphasizing this ethnographic, because we would like to see you are not just collecting data. Did you talk to the real people? Did you go on the field? And they agreed with me. And it really shows, an element of peace, making peace in terms of mediation, in terms of creating a better life to some extent in this area. I think at this point, I will yield to the center director, Professor Aneto, to, identify the great men that have, we have their hands up. So your call, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful moderation of this session. We appreciate your performance, sir. And thank you to all our speakers. You've done wonderfully well. We appreciate you all. so as not to wait for that time, I can see that the emeritus professor was the first to raise up his hand. So I'll go in that order. Emeritus Professor Sogolo, followed by Professor John. Bewachi.
Professor Emeritus.
Emeritus 2. So Emeritus 1, Emeritus 2, and followed by our own Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu, and I'm sure he will also be emeritus very soon.
Is distinguished.
Okay, sir. Professor Emeritus.
Very much, Director. This is a very wonderful experience I've gone through, and I don't know how Professor Tijani does it in the US, and he has time always for us. And you know, really, I want to say thank you for always, you know, attending our, you know, discussions, you know. But see, today is a wonderful day because peace studies, conflict resolution, and so forth is an area I've been interested in for a long time. And, you know, as I go through, it's unfortunate that I have to migrate further because, you know, when I saw the title at the beginning, I got a little bit confused because I saw migrating peace and then studying peace again. But these studies there until Professor Tijani introduced it and he added peace studies. So it became clearer. And, you know, I say it's unfortunate because Professor John Ayotunde Biwaji had just come in. I've not even had the opportunity to talk to him. I've not had the opportunity to talk to Professor Adamu, Uba Adamu, who is a great man. And I never want to leave any occasion when he is there. I want to listen to him, but I have to migrate for a good reason. Today we have the World Day of Logic, and that's in philosophy, and that is to start soon. And I must join them because these are my people. But it's a wonderful experience, I say, because I haven't listened to Tijani, I haven't listened to Adesina Uthman, Ademula, Samuel Iroye, and then Adiola Adams, who is very much going after Abbott in peace studies because he's such an articulate person. I always like to listen to him. And of course, also my HOD is, you know, is there with us, Dr. Olejede. I hope you become professor soon. But this is a wonderful experience, and I want to thank the director once more. I want to thank Tijani, and of all people, please, I'm not able to stay to listen to you because I know hearing you, Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu, is always an exciting thing for me. I thank you very much. I have to migrate further to join my people. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. You are practicalizing today's talk. You are migrating. So migrating peace. And then, of course, I know you have studied some content of peace. So thank you very much, sir, for actualizing what we have learned today. So over to you, Emeritus Professor Ayotunde Bewaji. Over to you, sir. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Yes, Happy New Year, and thank you for having me. I want to thank Professor Tijani for inviting me to this. I'm sorry I joined a little bit late because I slept. I couldn't be long. I want to thank all the presenters and especially how this program was put together. Sometime about 5 years ago, I came across the work of a very young, you know, future great, who had done a first degree at the University of Jos and was at OAU doing research towards the PhD. She's from the religious studies background, But our study was about the peace making, conflict and peace studies using the indigenous, religious and social and cultural ideas to find solutions. In Benue, there are serious problems, and I was very, very fascinated by her research. And I personally took on the mentorship of Progress until she defended and got a PhD last year. But then, you know how there was a freeze on appointments and all that within the university system. And, one university in Nigeria advertised for a position in peace and conflict studies. And I said, okay, go and apply. She said they would not consider her. I said, but this is what you are doing. And she applied. She got to the interview. I think they just put her on the interview so that they wouldn't say she was denied the opportunity. And at the interview, they asked her, why did you apply here? You are from religious studies. What is it? What can you contribute? She said she's a specialist in peace and conflict studies. And that's what her dissertation is. They didn't even listen to her. And you see, when I listen to what has been said here, the blame is actually on our National Universities Commission, NUC, or whatever crap they call themselves, because they have created so much problems that people don't see interdisciplinarity, which is what you are doing. They don't see it, and they continue to allow our senior colleagues to build silos. And when you build silos, they want this girl to have a BA Peace and Conflict Studies, a Master's in Peace and Conflict Studies, and a PhD in Peace and Conflict Studies. And I said to them, whoever was making that question there, is that individual knowledgeable in the history of peace and conflict studies globally, and in Nigeria and in Africa, especially in South Africa and in Nigeria? So when I listened and I saw lawyers, sociologists, and all of you who are in the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies, I became a little bit happier that all is not lost, because people know that peace and conflict has many dimensions, and a lot of the problems you have there, you need different perspectives to be able to understand and to be able to deal with it. I don't know how we are going to correct the National Universities Commission. I don't know what kind of characters are there and what they think they are doing. But, reinforcing this thing about interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, and Professor Albert, I was on a board of Conflict Awareness and Prevention Initiative, of which Professor Albert, Olawale Albert, we are co-members of the board. I'm from philosophy, but this thing I've been part of it for a very long time. I supervised PhDs in peace and conflict in cultural studies in various areas, even though my area is primarily philosophy. So I want to thank you, Professor Aneto. I want to thank you, Professor. And I want to thank the current Vice Chancellor, and I hope that they will grant the ask by my friend and colleague there that you should need actually an institute, not just a department. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful contribution. We appreciate you, sir. So now let me call on our former Vice Chancellor, Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu, for his contribution or questions.
So good afternoon, everyone, and especially the grand old man, super specialist on dead white philosophers. They're still talking about Plato, Aristotle, and all these dead white people that are just useless to modern society, instead of looking at real Africans and coming up with African philosophy. I know he has gone, but I hope somebody will tell him that I'm still on my track against dead white philosophers that are being forced. We're talking about decolonization, and yet we're recolonizing ourselves instead of identifying African philosophers, promoting African philosophers. We're all talking about Pythagoras, talking about Greek philosophers. So, and then we're now contradicting the concept of decolonization of African studies, because unless you speak Latin, You are not really a scholar or something like that in Africa. Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and I'll join everyone in saying this is a very wonderful panel. But I think more than almost anybody here, is the right person to talk about multi or interdisciplinarity. Many people may not know it, but I'm a biologist. My first degree was in biology and physiology in science education. But then I got fed up with science education. I got fed up with the idea of just making useless recommendations nobody is going to implement, and nobody really cares anyway. No matter how many times you talk about research in science education, things are not going to improve. Things have always been bad. So after becoming a professor in 1997, I said, that's it. Sayonara, bye-bye, hasta la vista, say anjima, goodbye. And I just simply left and moved on into cultural studies. And I'm enjoying myself, having a very good time, because I can understand society. I can see what social awareness is all about. So I'm fascinated by the whole idea of migration, because my father was a scholar on migration. He was a foremost expert on migration studies of the Arabs from North Africa, Middle East to Kano. And one way or the other, I sustained the tradition of looking at the migration of people and so on. And so the concept of migration to me is very, very important. But the issue is migrants are seen with suspicion. And therefore, that has implications for peace. People don't like other people coming in and staying with them. When Kano was colonized in 1903, the emir of Kano at that particular time made it very clear to the British colonial administration that he does not want any non-Muslim, non-Hausa inside the city, the walled city. Kano has a wall around itself, where he doesn't want any non-Muslim, non-Hausa inside that particular area. Why? Because he believes that the differences in culture and religion might cause a lot of problem. And unfortunately, when the migrants were placed outside Kano in what is called Sabangari, most of the riots and things like that in the history of Kano were actually initiated from that area. In most cases, it's about misunderstanding, but then it escalates into we versus they, migrants versus settlers, and then you have a lot of violence and so on. But southern Nigerians, other Africans, those that are settled outside the city, were not the only ones who have settled in Kano. We have Arabs, we have Yemeni, we have Middle Easterns, all living inside the city. But so long as they share the same cultural similarities with the people that they are living with, there seems to be a lot of peace, and that has always been like that. And also integration. When the Arabs came, they open integrate with the culture, society, and they get married. But it's very difficult for the Southerners to integrate with the Northerners because of religion. The Arabs share similar religion, so it's very easy to integrate. Also, some physical characteristics. I mean, the Fulani and the Arabs share similar physical characteristics, so it makes it easier for people to marry each other. But when it comes to the Southerners and the Northerners, the question people tend to ask is, what happens to the children? What identity will they be picking up? And those children will always have this label of non-Hausa or non-Yoruba wherever they go. So peace is about understanding and tolerating each other. And unfortunately, we're not understanding and tolerating each other. We are creating a lot of problems among ourselves. Why, besides just simply the religious factor, why were the Arabs accepted in Kano? They were accepted in Kano because, first of all, our own internal racism that believes that anybody who is lighter skinned is superior person. There is that. Within Hausa folklore and society, there is a preference for light-skinned individuals. In fact, one of the limericks for Hausa children, which I sang, was Wankan baki asarar ruwa, in yayi maka ban bai yi ba. That is, the bathing of a dark-skinned person is a waste of water, because even if he bathes, it looks like he has not bathed. So there is this inherent preference for light-skinned color. So whatever light-skinned people come in, they are really accepted. That's one. Religion. Even those, the Lebanese, for instance, were Shia and the Hausa Sunni, but the fact that they are all united by Islam makes them acceptable. Most importantly, wealth. When people migrate, the Arabs and so on, when migrate to Kano, they came with wealth, they came with money, they came with trade. It's not like they were Megad or they were street sweepers or anything. No, they came with money. And that wealth enabled them to establish businesses and employ people, and that will make them more acceptable. Unless these criteria are there, there won't be any peace in any place. There will be a lot of problem. And then somebody talk about decolonizing. Professor Gania talk about decolonizing, which is very good. But unfortunately, look at the narrative, Prof. People are recolonizing themselves. The migration, the irregular migration from Nigeria, from other places, they are shifting towards the places where they were initially colonized. And it's not just simply in Africa. Look at South America, the way South Americans are trying to troop to the United States. So we have created a narrative against colonization. And now our people are begging to be recolonized again, because they are trying to run to the places where this colonization started. They are willing to disgrace themselves in order to become part of the former colonial world. When I was living in Warsaw, a Nigerian was arrested for illegal immigration or irregular migration, whatever they call it now. And I was part of the embassy, Nigerian embassy team that went to talk to him about being repatriated. The Polish government says, okay, they can't keep him, but they can send him back to Nigeria to serve his sentence. And the guy said, no, he wasn't going. He doesn't mind staying in the prison, because in the prison, he will have medical care, he will have food, he will have light, he will have everything. But in Nigeria, he will have nothing. So he would rather stay in prison in Poland than to go back to Nigeria. And he was not the only one. There are many people who have this kind of recolonized mentality. Again, how do we handle all that? How do we create this narrative of patriotism, of Africanism, when it comes to telling our people that this is Africa, stay? But then the politicians are not helping matters either. I mean, within the last 2 months, the revelations about the billions of naira that has been stolen were enough to create a whole new country. The massive amount of money. So you have more and more people stealing money. Interestingly enough, and I think very good enough, a lot of women are also stealing money, which is very good. We don't want to say the thieves are only men, but now it's very nice to see women with hijab. No, sorry, not you, Ganiat. A woman with hijab, but stealing a lot of money, which is okay, fine, no problem. But it all goes to show the contradictions of contemporary development in African societies. We have this issue of one person steal a huge amount of money, that money that could be used to ameliorate the Japa syndrome that people are running away from. You can create jobs, you can do all that sort of thing with this money. But one person taking billions and billions just for themselves. And what I like best is the last one, this beautiful lady who is a minister of humanitarian something. And within just less than 3 months, he has stolen about 530 million, which is nice, because if you have left her, she would have stolen more than about trillions and trillions by the time she finishes. So we have to look inwards. Policy perspective is very, very critical. We need to point out the idea of communal living together is very critical, but we are not addressing the policy issue. All these Pama, Hada, conflict is about migration. The Fulani, for instance, have no conception of a settled environment. They are always on the road. But then they are now crossing around areas that were built up, by settlers, farms and things like that have been destroyed. And there was always like this conflict and destruction and so on and so forth. How do we address this? Nobody wants to address it. Everybody is scared to do that because they are scared of being kidnapped or they're scared of being shot. So we will continue having roundtable again and again and again and again, and it won't be theoretical. We really lack a practical way of implementing some of these issues of promoting peace and understanding within the concept of migration. Finally, the professor talked about this issue of NUC, a lack of understanding of multidisciplinarity, and so on. I think NUC is trying to correct that. One of the things that NUC did was to create CCMAS, co-curriculum minimum academic standards. And NUC will take control of 70% of the curriculum content in any discipline. They will decide it, like they have been doing. But now they will give 30% to the university to develop. So within the 30% window, you can develop your courses in whatever you like. that will enhance contemporary living, whether it is social media, whether it is migration, whether it is peace studies, or whatever it is. You are free to do so. So I think we should maximize this and see how we could do that. For instance, we could inject peace studies or peace migration issues in almost various departments. We can do that. Every department in the social sciences, for instance, will now create something that has an interface with peace and conflict resolution. And I think that will now create a wider perspective of understanding peace and conflict studies in Nigeria. So I'm very happy that it was during our time that this concept was being explored. And I'm very happy that my brother, Professor Apemi Peters, is sustaining this legacy. And I think it is very, very important for us to continue talking about this again and again and again. Professor Apemi Peters has done a wonderful job. I'm really, really happy because there is nothing more pleasing than handing over and then seeing that your dreams and your aspirations have been sustained. In some cases, they reverse it. They reverse everything. Now that person will do this one. Me now my own, I go do it and then cancel it. But it has been sustained. So, Professor Peters, thank you very much, sir, for maintaining the scholastic tradition of the university. I would be very proud to be part of anything, anytime, anywhere I'm asked to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I must tell you that Professor Peters is very passionate about this very center and says, my friend left this and he was passionate about it. So I have no choice but to be able to sustain this and be passionate about it. He still said this only yesterday and he's doing his best to make sure this center of others and say, I was very happy with the recommendations of Dr. Adimula, and particularly that one of saying peace and curriculum should start from primary school to tertiary institutions. I think this, if by any way we have this institute established, as was suggested by Dr. Iroye, I think this is something we must look into, but we don't wait for even now to establish it. Let's see how this recommendation can get to the people who can make it work, because I think we really need it more in Nigeria now, because Nigeria, we know, everybody says it's not a peaceful country anymore. Maybe in the days of Professor Abdallah, it was peaceful when they were growing up, or when we were growing up, but now, nobody counts us as a peaceful nation, even though there is no frank war, carrying guns and shooting everywhere. But we know that it's all over many cities. I don't even know if any city is free. And so there's really no peace in the country. So if we start from catch them young, from the primary school to tertiary institutions, perhaps there'll be a bit of improvement in this situation. Let people really understand what true peace means. Like I was saying, I said, okay, migrating, because when I saw this topic, I was saying, yes, it's a nice one, but how can we really practically migrate peace? I know how we can study peace, because it's a two-in-one something. I know how we can study peace, because we learn it, we teach it, we do exams on it, we bring back, download whatever they've taught us. But this migrating it is where we really need to do more work. How to really migrate peace, I think there should be clear-cut points listed on that, how to migrate peace, practically, and then to encourage this curriculum from primary to tertiary institutions. Thank you. That's my own bit that I'm adding to this.
Thank you very much, Director. And I think we can wrap it up. We want to thank everyone on behalf of the panelists. We want to also appreciate all the comments and the fact that we have actually succeeded, in our opinion, that is myself and the panelists, to convince rather than confuse anyone about the topic that, really created interest. How do you migrate peace? How do you study peace? How do you make peace relevant? But more importantly, we have also justified the need for that emphasis on indigenous knowledge, which Professor Ayotunde Bewaji mentioned. And in our historical contextualization of the peace as a discipline, peace studies as a discipline, we've also decolonized the fact that indeed peace studies, conflict resolution, mediation had always been part of the Africans before the European intervention. And on this note, I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank everyone. And I will say peace always. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And from
so
the
much.
center end, we thank you all for finding it worthy to come and educate us on this platform on migrating and studying peace. It's a very topical issue. We really appreciate you. We thank Professor Tijani for spearheading the present and sharing your knowledge with us all. And we will say next time we want to have more of this within the year. It's January, just ending today. And